Facebook. What? Okay, we're just going to carry on anyway. I think Facebook's okay. Right, what I'm going to do is I thought we'd pay half of that and then we'd go back to Mike. We'll go over to Mike. And then what we can do is go back and play that right at the end, if that's a good idea. And what are your thoughts on it so far, Mike? Hang on, I'll unmute you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you go.
Thank you. Very interesting. Funnily enough, the figures were slightly inaccurate. There's been, in the last 12 months, 89 banks have been supported by the Fed and taken over and owned by the Fed. And most of the problems occur about the commercial property mortgages not being met, because although the economy is supposed to be booming in America, it definitely isn't. So that's a slight exaggeration. One piece I'd like to mention, I just thought I'd mention this. Trump's Deutsche Bank loan was underwritten by the Russian state-owned bank, according to a whistleblower who told the FBI. So I quite like that. So we might be hearing a bit more about that as time goes by. But the biggest thing is that was rightly covered there. It's we have very low interest rates, and we're printing money, and it's the way to ruin. You know that normally what happens when you want an economy to grow, you increase the interest rates, which makes more money come into the banks instead of lending what they haven't got, because they're not making any money. The banks are relending and relending and relending. When you see the actual cost to the economy, this is heading to be worse than 2007, 2008, and it looks like it could touch the levels of the 1920s. And it's not just America, it's around the world. Some of the countries are building security by buying assets, like China, the Gulf countries, where they're buying gold in anything they can get. Even France is buying gold. So there is a lot going on. While on top of this, in the UK and in Europe, we've got the challenges with Brexit and what's going to happen in that direction. And again, it's all hypothetical, but the forecast is we'll have inflation in the next year or so in UK and Europe of around 1.7%. But if you think in Germany, they had no growth at all in the last year, it gives you some real concerns that what's going to happen. Mark Carney was saying that he thinks that unless the Feds change their direction and stop printing money, then we're going to be in a real poor state. And when the Bank of England head starts to tell you that story, you know there's some truth behind it, don't you? Where else have we got talking about? Oh, yes. The Independent did a survey on the UK banks, and Royal Bank of Scotland was named as the UK's worst bank. And Metro Bank comes out on top, even though Metro went through a very poor time in the middle of last year. Financially, they really had a problem. And one of the other things that's come out is that banking fraud complaints surged by 43% to an all-time high, says the UK's financial ombudsman. These things happening, and this is the complaints against banks have absolutely gone through the window. And this is happening because people are trying to control the costs and make some profit with the money that they're lending out to individuals and to companies. So I do think we're in for a real challenging time. Someone asked me a question during the little break about the central bank and what the central bank does. What it's supposed to do is promote growth and employment. It sets the interest rates, and the aim is that it macroeconomic targets, it issues notes and coins. It has an inflation target set by the government the bank is associated with, and it becomes a lender of last resort to the government. It ensures financial stability in the way it's run, or it's hoped to, but it's also a lender of last resort to banks. Now, currently, we know that it's lending profusely to banks and it's lending profusely to governments. So what we are going to see is inflationary targets not being met. It's not promoting growth and employment. It's set very low interest rates, so it's not managing the macroeconomic targets that were set, and it's producing masses and masses of notes and coins, so that there's no assets behind it. So that's all out challenges for the financial economy. There was a piece in Forbes where the question would ask, should you, if you have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, etc., should you have a will? And the answer is yes. Of course, the answer is yes. The answer is yes, because what happens if you die? Your passwords, etc., get lost. How do your beneficiaries have access to your assets? So a little point I'd mention. There was a nice piece about oh yes, a nice piece published by excuse me. Oh yes, published by The Guardian. It's debt will kill global economies, but no one seems to care. And that's precisely how I feel now. And at that point, Roger, I think I'll pass over, and hopefully someone's got a more joyful tale to tell.
Well, I'd just say there, Mike, you're spot on, because most people, they don't care. And, you know, I'm saying out to probably the masses out there, until it bites them in the rear end or affects them directly, they don't care. Okay. And, you know, that's in there. And I was just going to say to you as well, a great quote from Robert Kiyosaki: losers are people who are afraid of losing.
Yes, absolutely.
Very, very cool.
Absolutely.
And another great saying here: yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not happened, you only have right now.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite is feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah,
do it anyway. But on a nicer note here, Burger King in Venezuela starts accepting Bitcoin.